shall we begin?
Let the games begin.
All right.
A new age has begun. An age of freedom.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Get to the chopper!
This is going to be quite the ride.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast this week. It has been quite a week. We have quite some news items this week to get to, so I'm not going to waste any time, and I'm going to go straight to the podcast. I am going to start off with some movie news items that came out after the podcast came out last week, as I always do, or as I not always do, because there's not always big movie news items that come out after the podcast goes up, but in this case, there was some really big movie news items. First, we're going to start off with this one, which actually, to me, sounds interesting. Of course, execution-wise is what's important. Olivia Munn is attached to lead the sci-fi action thriller Replay. The project is being showcased at the virtual Cannes film market right now, or that's going on right now or soon or something like that. Anyway, the movie is likened by filmmakers to John Wick and The Raid in terms of close quarter action scenes, and to The Terminator for its sci-fi storytelling. So what's it about? Well, Replay is a story of Aaron Staffer, played by Olivia Munn, whose husband is kidnapped and murdered. Now armed with illegal bleeding-edge technology and a desperate plan, Aaron must do everything in her power to change her past and save him. So it's a nice little, gender switch. It's usually the man whose wife gets murdered and he has to do everything he can. It's a nice little switch. That's why I find it kind of intriguing. The next movie news item is that Patrick Wilson and Charlie Plummer from All the Money in the World, he's also done some other stuff. I know he was in the Hulu series Looking for Alaska, have joined Halle Berry and Josh Gad in the next End of the World film by Roland Emmerich, aka the man that bought us Independence Day, pretty much any other End of the World movie you can think of. For some reason, they're all blank in my head. 2012, The Day After Tomorrow, stuff like that. Geostorm. Oh, no one wants to mention that one? No. Yeah, I wouldn't want to mention it either. Which plans to start filming this fall? The movie will see the moon that is knocked from its orbit by mysterious force and is on a collision course with Earth, which is a few weeks to go before impact. A ragtag team is sent on a seemingly impossible mission to land on the lunar surface. Did I say nuclear? On the lunar surface and save humanity. I don't know what's wrong with me. So I only just started the podcast, so we're in for a good ride today. Wilson will play a disgraced former NASA astronaut whose last mission ended up in tragedy, who holds a clue about the impending catastrophe. Plummer will play his teenage son. Barry will play a former colleague of Wilson's character, and Gad is playing an eccentric genius who deduces that the moon has fallen from its orbit. Lionsgate, which will be releasing the movie, just like Emmerich's last movie, Midway, which was not about the end of the world, but it was actually a war movie, is eyeing a 2021 release date. Coincidentally, Wilson also worked with Emmerich on Midway. So let's get some released shifts, because good old COVID is still around, and movie studios are still uncomfortable releasing some movies. Universal Pictures has shifted the release date for their sci-fi drama Bios, which stars Tom Hanks, Caleb Landry Jones, and Skeet Ulrich. Yes, Skeet Ulrich from Scream fame. In a post-apocalyptic story about a man, his dog, and the robot who becomes an unlikely family unit. The movie was supposed to come out in October 2nd of this year, but that has been moved now to April 16th of next year. The other release date shift was the next James Bond film, No Time to Die, has moved yet again, although unlike the other movies, No Time to Die isn't getting pushed back months or even a year. It's actually getting pushed forward. No Time to Die will now come out on November 20th. Originally, it was supposed to come out in April, so we would have pretty much seen it already. It was one of the first movies to get moved because of COVID. Its move went from November 25th, but now it's coming out on November 20th. So they kind of moved it up a few days, which is fine. It's all cool. I don't know if maybe they want to avoid the holiday weekend or something, or, the studios know something that we don't know about. Theaters' plans to, open up more seats. Who knows? But whatever the case, It's coming out a few days sooner, which is always a lot of fun. Unless you live in the UK, because that comes out on November 12th for you guys. So kudos to you. Disney has shifted some releases as well. The Peter Jackson Beatles documentary, The Beatles Get Back, was scheduled to come out on September 4th. That has now been moved to next year, next August, to be more precise, August 27th. Everybody's talking about Jamie, which is based off the 2017 musical, has been moved to January 22nd of next year. That was also originally supposed to come out in October of this year. The personal history of David Copperfield, based on the Charles Dickens book, has been given a limited release for this year on August 14th. We can only assume that it's probably going to get a wider release as the month goes on, maybe even in September. The big change was the shift for the one and only Ivan. That is a movie that's based off the novel by Catherine Applegate and features big names all around, but the big ensemble here is the voice cast, because the voice cast has Sam Rockwell, Angelina Jolie, Danny DeVito, and Helen Mirren, just to name a few. And the live action actors in the movie are Bryan Cranston and a few others as well. So the movie was jam-packed with a bunch of stars. The movie, in case you didn't know, tells the story of a strip mall zoo in 1990s. There, of course, is more to that. Originally, the movie was supposed to come out on August 14th. But now that will come out in August, still of this year, a little bit later on August 21st on Disney Plus. So it's no longer going to theaters. It's now going to the streaming service. This is the third movie meant for a theater release that has been moved to the streaming service since Disney Plus took off. The first one was Noelle, which is the Anna Kendrick movie where she plays Santa Claus's niece or daughter. I never watched it, but I know it's something that had to do with Santa Claus. And then, of course, recently there was Artemis Fowl, which came out this past weekend, which everyone has kind of watched already. I haven't seen it yet, but everyone has watched, and no one's liking it. So there you go. And now this. That's not necessarily too much of a telling sign that, like Artemis Fowl, that they moved it to the streaming service. That's not a good movie. That's just, I don't know. Maybe they just think it's gonna be. Maybe they just think it works better as a streaming service movie instead of a full-blown feature film. Well, we'll find out. And finally, let's talk about the Warner Brothers shifts, because there was a lot of Warner Brothers movies that got shifted around. So let's talk about some of those. So the first one we're going to talk about is the big one. That was the first one that kind of got the ball rolling for Warner Brothers. They moved Christopher Nolan's Tenet. Finally. It's not a gigantic move. Don't get all excited. You're not going to have to wait a year. You're just going to have to wait a couple weeks. Because originally it was supposed to come out on the 17th. It will now come out on July 31st. So it's only a 2-week move. The move, according to the New York Times, a few days after the move was announced, reported the move was to reportedly keep Nolan happy, since he was adamant about keeping Tenet in its slot and thinking and saying that he wanted Tenet to be the movie that brought moviegoers back to theaters. He says that Tenet is the movie that we should see in theaters. You know, everyone's up in arms about Tenet being moved, and everyone's up in arms about, whether or not Christopher Nolan should probably get off the high horse that he's on about Tenet being the movie that should bring back moviegoers. In some respects, I can understand that. There's no way that the COVID thing is going to go away in 6 weeks. That's the time frame for the movie to come out. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be. This is a big budgeted movie. I think I read somewhere it was like $200 million or something close to that Warner Bros. Has invested entirely on Tenet. So that's a big investment to take on a movie. Yes, Christopher Nolan has done wonders for the studio, and he's pretty much been the studio's go-to director. But at the same time, it's only a 2-week move. I get it. You want the movie to come out in theaters, but you can push it back maybe to, I don't know, even another month, maybe another 2 months. If you're adamant about it being in theaters right away, I get it. I do. Maybe pull it off the release schedule and see when this thing comes up, and then, when everything starts clearing up and everyone's okay with going back to the movie theater, just release it then. You already have a new trailer. Everyone knows the situation. Everyone knows pretty much that there's no movies coming out unless they're coming out at a drive-in. That's fine. I just, I get it. I get why people are upset, but at the same time, I don't know. It's really weird. All right. Let's move on. The next big move was Wonder Woman 1984. That had already been moved as well. It was supposed to come out in June. I think it was supposed to come out around now, maybe even earlier than that. But that was originally moved to August. Now it's getting moved yet again. It's getting moved to October 2nd to be more precise. So just a little bit longer for Wonder Woman. Hopefully by then we'll be okay. Maybe we'll have a brief window because, they said the second wave is going to hit in the fall. So we'll see. Warner Bros. Also moved The Matrix 4. That was supposed to come out on May 21st next year. It will now be released on April 1st, 2022. So it's been pushed back 2 years. We get it. It already started filming, but they had to stop because of COVID and everything that's else going on, obviously. Godzilla vs. Kong was also pushed back from this year. It was supposed to come out on November 20th. That was actually its second release date. I think it was supposed to come out in March of this year. That has now been pushed to May 21st, 2021. So that's the third movie. Originally was supposed to come in March. I did write it down. Then it was supposed to come out in November. Now it's coming out May of next year. Warner Bros. Also moved the Tom and Jerry movie that was supposed to come out in December. They moved that to May of next year. From the report that I saw, they had the same release date. So I don't know if Warner Brothers is releasing Godzilla vs. Kong and Tom and Jerry on the same day. That seems counterproductive, but whatever. I'm not running that studio. They also took the adaptation of The Witches off the release schedule. That was supposed to come out in October. So we'll have to wait and see when they want to release that. Maybe they'll just release it next year in October, because that seems like an October movie to me. All right. Those were all those were all the movie items that came out after the podcast went up last week. Let's move on to this week's movie news items, which there is, again, quite a few. But before we get to the movie news items, we're going to talk about this really quick. This video that was released on Twitter by the new Candyman director, Nia DaCosta. She released a video on Twitter that looks to be the origins of her version of Candyman for her movie that's going to come out later this year in September. It was done in a puppetry style. Done by the Manual Cinema, which is a pretty cool Chicago-based performance collective, which if you guys know by now, if you listen to this podcast enough, I'm from the Chicagoland area, which I thought was really cool. Of course, they filmed a lot of the Candyman here in the Chicagoland area as well. She wrote this with the video saying, Candyman at the intersection of white violence and black pains is about unwilling martyrs, the people they were, the symbols we turned them into, the monsters we are told they must have been. The video is very, very cool. It's very harrowing. It's very haunting. I believe the score is from the movies themselves as well. It's a very cool video that I highly recommend you go watch. I will try to link her post from Twitter in the description / show notes area if you want to go check that out. I highly recommend you do. It's very, very cool. It's a nice little just tease. It's a nice little something. The movie is supposed to come out, like I mentioned, in September 25th, to be more precise. So it's a nice little holdover before we get to the movie. Hopefully we'll get to watch it. Hopefully it comes out. With everything going on, obviously, a lot of filmmakers probably have to just self-promote their stuff in a lot of ways. But it was really, really cool, and I wanted to give that a special shout out here on the podcast because I just thought it was really, really awesome. So there you go. All right, let's move on to the movie news items. We're going to start off with some quick fire movie news items, some very quick fire movie news items because I don't have too much to say about a lot of these movie news items, but I still want to point them out to you guys, obviously, because that's what I do here on the podcast. The first one is Because We Can't Leave Her Alone, Even in Death. Kristen Stewart is set to play the late Princess Diana in the Pablo Larraín directed drama Spencer. The movie will portray the late princess deciding over the course of her Christmas holidays with the royal family at the Sandringham estate to leave her marriage to Prince Charles. Production is expected to begin in early 2021, of course, Princess Diana was sadly passed away in 1997 after a car crash in Paris. You can put whatever connotation you want, whether it was conspiracy, whether it was a hit, whatever, but she died nonetheless, and we just can't leave her alone because I get it. She was a princess and she had her own, story and everything, and a very interesting story, but at the same time, it's like, just leave her alone, guys, come on. And Kristen Stewart, I guess, I haven't seen enough of her indie work to really plant my flag on her and say, she's awesome. But from what I hear, she gives very great performances in the independent movies she's done. So I guess I'm on board. I mean, you put both of them together, they kind of look, I don't know. whatever. And Pablo Larraín, by the way, directed Jackie, the movie with Natalie Portman where she played Jack Kennedy. So he has a knack for, hitting those, true life people stories. So there you go. Bear Grylls, yes. That Bear Grylls is producing a new adaptation of The Count of Monte Cristo. Of course, it's based off the classic novel of the same name. This new version, however, will be set during modern day in Afghanistan. The movie will, quote, focus on the friendship and bitter rivalry that develops between two special forces soldiers who are sent into war in Afghanistan. Recently, David Goyer was going to write a version that was being labeled as a 19th century Dark Knights, which, considering he was one of the writers in The Dark Knight, he would have probably been able to pull that off. However, that project never came together. There has been adaptations of the classic novel before. The last film version that we saw on the big screen was in 2002, all the way back then, with Guy Pearce and Jim Caviezel. But I don't remember. I never watched it, but I don't remember anyone, and I still to this day have not met anyone who says that movie's good. So take that however you want. The plan is to start casting soon to shoot sometime next year. So Bear Grylls is getting in the film business, I guess. So, okay. John Boyega's next film role has been revealed through Variety. Boyega will star in Naked Singularity. I almost said Singularity. Yeah, whatever. I know what I was going to say. Naked Singularity, the film that also stars Olivia Cook. She was from Me, Earl, and The Dying Girl, which I highly recommend you watch if you haven't watched it yet. She plays the Dying Girl. And Ready Player One. She was also in that. She played Artemis. Ed Sheeran is also in the movie. Of course, he played the villain in Deadpool, and I know he's been in a bunch of other stuff. Alito, Battle Angel, he was in that. He's pretty much always playing a bad guy. Bill Skarsgård is in there, and Tim Blake Nelson is also part of the cast as well. The movie is going to be the directorial debut of Chase Palmer, who was one of the writers on It, and is based off the book of the same name by Sergio de la Pava. The movie centers on a rising star in the New York Public Defender's Office, who will be played by Boyega, who starts to question the criminal justice system after losing a case that results in his suspension. Doubting all he has worked for, and on the edge of a mental breakdown, his life unravels as he is pulled into a high-stakes heist by an unpredictable young defendant played by Olivia Cook. The movie is currently being shopped around in Hollywood. Boyega in this week's news as well. Not necessarily Boyega, but actually the director, not himself, but this concerns him as well. The director of Attack the Block, which was Boyega's first real big movie, the one that put him on the scene. Joe Cornish talked recently about talking with Boyega and finally, potentially, maybe doing a sequel to Attack the Block. The two have talked, and apparently Joe Cornish and John Boyega have a lot of ideas for a sequel. Of course, the two of them are just very busy, especially John Boyega, so we'll have to just wait and see if we can finally get a sequel to Attack the Block. If you have not seen Attack the Block, I highly recommend you go watch it, because it is a very good movie, and that was the movie. And everyone says it was Star Wars, and yeah, I guess in some ways, but it was because of Attack the Block that Boyega got the Star Wars role. So there you go. All right, moving on. The next quickfire movie news item, a biopic on the famed and late singer of Motorhead, Lemmy, as everyone just calls him Lemmy, I suppose, is in the works. The movie will be directed by Greg Oliver, who spent 3 years with the band, following them for the 2010 documentary of the same name, Lemmy. The movie will center on his adventures as the, quote, vanguard and talisman of the loudest, dirtiest, and most liberated rock and roll band in the world. It will cover his life in England, his experience as a roadie for Jimi Hendrix, and his time with the rock band Hawkwind, which he was fired from. He did pass away, unfortunately, in 2015 at the age of 70. Quick note, Lemmy did say that if there was ever a movie going to be made about him, he wanted Roger Moore to play him, which is pretty interesting and pretty wild, but there you go. So there is that's in the works. Scholastic is partnering with Picture Start to bring the popular book series Animorphs by K.A. Applegate to the big screen. The main plot of the series follows 5 teens, Jake, Marco, Cassie, Rachel, and Tobias, who have the ability to morph into any animal they touch. They use their powers to fight a secret alien invasion of Earth. The series sold over 35 million, which is still a lot, 35 million copies within their original run from 1996 to 2001. With 54 books in total. There was a Canadian-produced TV series. They ran for 2 seasons in the late 90s. I remember that series. I watched it. I still remember to this day the very cheesy TV late 90s special effects. Anyway, the series will continue in a graphic novel form, which comes out in October. They're also releasing the first 6 books again in the fall with their original 90s covers, which is really cool. They're doing like a special like thing with it, so it's pretty interesting. So Animorphs is getting a feature film adaptation. And finally, the last quickfire movie news item. The long-in-the-works stop-motion animated Pinocchio movie by Guillermo del Toro has gotten a bit of an update this week. Ewan McGregor, who was already attached, I think. I don't remember reading that, but I guess he's attached. Either way, Ewan McGregor revealed in his role in the movie by telling Ace Universe in an interview that he will be voicing Jiminy Cricket. So there you go. I don't know why my voice cracked all of a sudden. He's voicing Jiminy Cricket. Del Toro's version, which has been a passion project of his for some time, is directing and writing and producing the movie, which is set in Italy during the 30s. You can do the math on that, and you can do the history search on that, because that's very telling of what's going on. Del Toro has also compared his version of Pinocchio to Frankenstein in previous interviews. Take that as you will as well. That sounds pretty interesting to me. So I know Del Toro's been working on this for a long time. The fact that he's finally getting to do it is pretty awesome. And apparently McGregor has already done some voice work for the movie, and he may or may not have revealed that there is a certain song that he will be singing. So there you go. All right, those are your quick fire movie news items. Let's move on to the big movie news items of the week, or the other movie news items of the week. Shouldn't compare the two movie news items because they're all movie news items. They're all good. Well, most of them. I only give you the good ones, or the interesting ones. Moving on. Let's just move on. The first big movie news item of the week is in a movie that was most likely coming because of, the Rona. The 93rd Academy Awards ceremony has been pushed back from February 28th to April 25th. That is a big move, obviously. In turn, that means that the Oscars eligibility period for feature films has been extended as well. They've also announced that the 2022 ceremonies for the Best Picture will be a mandated 10 pictures. Up until now, it's been up to 10 pictures. It will now be 10 pictures, regardless of whatever rule they have in place. So that's pretty cool. That means that more movies will be nominated and get a chance to be nominated for Best Picture. The Academy also released a statement saying that the Oscars will still be held at the Dolby Theater in Hollywood and will air live on ABC. This is a rejection to the idea that the show was going to be pre-taped or go virtual. So there is that. This is surprisingly the third time that the Oscars has been delayed in any way. The first one was due to the LA flooding in 1938. The second time was in 1968 after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and then after the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan in 1981. There was also some other changes that they made. Eligibility, obviously, now that the Oscars have been moved from February to April, the window for that has been extended. They've also doing some things internally to make sure that everyone sees all the movies before they start voting, or at least the idea of that. But I don't know, they'll probably find a way around that because not everyone wants to watch those movies. And by not everyone, I mean the older people. But we'll just go with that. A lot of that is voting stuff. We don't have a say in the voting stuff, so I usually don't talk about that because we don't have a say in it unless you are a voter in the Academy, which how'd you do it? Anyway, let's move on to the next movie news item. Changes wise, I think we all kind of saw that was coming, but we'll see. Obviously, they changed some rules earlier as well, allowing Netflix movies to kind of be eligible for Best Pictures if they show that there was they were going to show the movie in theaters, because that's the rule in the Academy. That the movie has to play at least once in a movie theater in LA and New York. So there you go. All right, but obviously the changes are, they'll probably end up talking more about those in the future. So the next movie news item, this is according to Diz Insider, so you can take this as you want, but apparently everything kind of lines up if you take into account some previous interviews. So that's why I'm kind of mentioning it. Zootopia directors Brian Howard and Jared Bush are attached and already working on the next Disney animation movie. Tentatively titled Encanto, the report suggests that the movie will follow a young girl and her family in Brazil, all who have magical powers. Sadly, the young girl has no powers. Nice little, nice little story about a family and one being an outsider. On top of that, the script is written by Jared Bush and Charlize Kestrel Smith. She's worked on some episodes for TV series like The Exorcist and The Haunting of Hill House. So it looks like this will be her first feature film. And Lin-Manuel Miranda is apparently writing the songs for the movie. Now, Disney, again, did not comment on the news, but the new president of Walt Disney Animation Studios, Clark Spencer, said that he was working on an original project with Miranda some time ago, and there hasn't been any indication on what that is until now, so looks like that's the case. So there you go. It's a nice little thing. They're going to Brazil. They've hit, China, and they've hit the Polynesian islands, and, Disney is, crossing a lot of streams, and there's some, there was a report that I read, I forgot what site I read it on, but, they were trying to open up a Disney World in Brazil or Disneyland in Brazil. So Brazil has been a very go-to spot for Disney recently. So it seems like they finally want to get to that. And the movie sounds interesting. You can never really count Disney out. The idea sounds interesting, so why not? All right, let's move on. Warner Brothers is going to adapt Ray Bradbury's 1972 fantasy novel, The Halloween Tree. Will Dunn, who has been tapped to write the screenplay. Dunn isn't necessarily a new name in Hollywood. He's been around Hollywood, but he's been more behind the scenes. He was actually a part of 20th Century Fox's feature writers program, and has worked on features for Disney, Sony, and Warner Brothers, to name a few. So he's not necessarily new in Hollywood, but this isn't necessarily his first feature film he's worked on. But he's writing the script for the movie. For those unfamiliar like myself, which I want to say I did, but I don't think I actually have ever read the book. Once I read the synopsis, I'm like, no, I never read that. The book follows Tom and his schoolmates who begin to investigate the strange happenings in their small town on Halloween night. Their friend Pip is abducted by a powerful demon from the land of the dead. No, not the George A. Romero movie, just the land of the dead. With the help of an unlikely ally, a mysterious figure named Moonshroud. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Tom and his pals must journey into the land of the dead to save their friend. The book, it reads like they cross time and space, traveling to ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome, and places like Notre Dame Cathedral in medieval Paris, and the Day of the Dead festival in Mexico. It sounds like a real interesting book, to be honest. It sounds pretty cool. It sounds like it's right up my alley, to be honest. And the fact that I haven't read it seems kind of wrong. But I'm gonna get on that. In case you want to see how the adaptation has been done before, Bradbury actually wrote and narrated a 1993 feature-length animated version for TV, which actually won a 1994 Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Writing in an Animated Program. So that's pretty cool. It sounds pretty cool. Bradbury's works have been adapted before, so I'm really excited for this one. I didn't even know anything about it. Never read the book. I want to read the book now, and it sounds pretty cool. Edgar Wright has signed on to direct the kidnapping thriller adaptation of Adrian McKinley's novel titled The Chain. The novel follows Rachel, a woman whose 11-year-old daughter has been kidnapped. She's told that the only way to get her daughter back is to kidnap another child, who will only be released if their parents also kidnap another child. Rachel is now part of The Chain, a terrifying and malicious chain letter like kidnapping scheme that turns parents from victims into criminals. The script will be written by Jane Goodman. She was one of the writers on I want to say one of the new X-Men movies. I think it might have been First Class. I could be wrong about that. But no other plans at the moment for when it will go behind the camera. Wright, of course, will have his newest film, Last Night in Soho, come out in the spring after it was moved from this year to next year because of COVID. So this sounds pretty interesting. Adrian McKinney's life, which I found out when I was doing some more research of the news story, kind of interesting. Apparently he quit writing and went into construction and then decided to give writing one more go, and he wrote The Chain, and now it's getting made into a movie. So, hey, there you go. Pretty cool. All right, let's move on to the next movie news item. Max Brooks's latest book, Devolution, is getting a feature film adaptation. Brooks is the man behind other hit novels like The Zombie Survival Guide and World War Z, which, of course, got a feature film adaptation of itself. His newest book, Devolution, is a take on the Bigfoot folk tale and is told as a journal and scientific investigation. The story is set in an eco-community town in the shadow of Mount Rainier, I should say. I don't know why I said that weird the first time. In the aftermath of a volcanic eruption is rampaged by a ferocious beast known as the Sasquatch. The tale is told through the lens of a town resident, Kate Holland, and is described as a, quote, part survival narrative, part bloody horror tale, part scientific journey into the boundaries between truth and fiction, end quote. An interesting fact, Brooks actually worked with the Lost team, Jack Bender and David Leslie Johnson, to develop the concept with Legendary back in 2012, but the project actually fell apart and went into an inactive state when Brooks reined the project in. And since then, he just decided to take it into the form of a book first before going back to working on it as a movie. From the reports that have come out, Bender and Leslie Johnson are no longer involved. Who knows, maybe they'll come back and get involved, but at the moment, they're no longer involved. The book is out now. It actually came out this week, so if you want to give it a read before you see the big screen version of it, now's your chance. Brooks, actually like Brooks's writing. I loved World War Z. I really liked the Zombie Survival Guide. He's written a bunch of other stuff, which I haven't gotten a chance to, but everything that he's done sounds interesting to me. So I didn't even know he was coming out with a new book. So this sounds pretty cool. And the fact that they want to take a Bigfoot approach to it sounds pretty cool. But I know a lot of people were upset with the World War Z adaptation because it wasn't really like the book, but who knows? Maybe they'll go that route with this one. MGM's fast-moving Project Hail Mary, is now in talks with Drew Goddard in talks to join. Goddard, of course, the writer of The Cabin in the Woods and The Martian. He also wrote and directed The Bad Times at the El Royale, in case you need projects to the name. If the deal pulls through, Goddard would once again be working on an adaptation of Andy Weir's work, first, of course, being the already mentioned The Martian. Weir is writing the script himself, with Goddard helping out with the story, at least for the time being, although it sounds like from all the reports that if things go right and schedules line up, Goddard could jump on script duties as well. The movie will be directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, with Ryan Gosling set to star. The story centers on an astronaut who wakes up to find himself millions of miles away from home in a tiny craft with 2 dead crewmates for company and no recollection of his mission or even his name. But eventually the man soon discovers that he is humanity's only hope from survival from an extinction-level threat. So there you go. That sounds pretty interesting. Phil Lord, Chris Miller, Drew Goddard, Andy Weir all together. If you throw Ryan Gosling in for an extra flavor, then yeah, this sounds pretty interesting. And this is a fast-moving project, so it sounds like potentially once things, get back to normal, at least normal-ish, they're going to start probably filming that right away. So I would not be surprised if they start filming this right away or as soon as they possibly can. Weta Digital, the VX studio co-founded by Peter Jackson and owned by Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh, announced the launch of Weta Animated, which will see the visual effects company producing their own original content for the first time in history. This is actually pretty cool. According to the press release, the company will produce animated projects for both film, TV, and streaming services. Jackson and Walsh will be playing a key role in Weta Animated, from writing, producing, directing content for the new studio, or the new branch of the studio anyway. This seems like a natural step for Weta Digital. They've helped a lot of movies and TV get their special effects done. They started off with Heavenly Creatures, which I believe was written, or at least had involved Peter Jackson in some form or another. They did the Lord of the Rings franchises, and that included the Hobbit movies, King Kong, Avatar, the new Planet of the Apes movies, Furious 7, Batman v Superman, Justice League, the BFG, Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, Aquaman, Alita Battle Angel, Game of Thrones in the later seasons, The Umbrella Academy, Gemini Man, Birds of Prey, and upcoming movies like Mulan, Black Widow, Godzilla vs. Kong, Jungle Cruise, The Batman, and the Avatar sequels, and so many more. They have helped out with so much special effects in so many movies. This is pretty cool. I think this is awesome. They revolutionized motion capture. It was Weta Digital. It was Peter Jackson. It was that company. And that's pretty cool, man. They're going to start making animated movies. I can't wait to see what they do because, you know, obviously, I mean, you can make the argument that the Hobbit movies were kind of already animated movies, but this is pretty cool, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with what they have, and obviously they have some of the best technology in the world. Obviously, the Planet of the Apes movies, the CGI for that was seemingly done. So yeah, I'm excited for this. And finally, the big movie news item of the week, Will Smith has joined the slave thriller Emancipation. The movie will be directed by Anton Fuqua, who was, of course, directed Training Day and The Equalizer, and is written by Bill College, who, one of the movies he wrote, I should have looked up what other he wrote, but the movie that all the reports I read about this story was they all had him connected to Exodus, Gods and Kings, which is the Ridley Scott movie, which no one really liked, and is being described as closer to the tone of Mel Gibson's directed Apocalypto than The Revenant or 12 Years a Slave. The movie is based on the true story of Peter, a runaway slave whose scourged back made him one of the most well-known slaves back in 1863. Peter was a slave on the Louisiana plantation owned by John and Bridget Loynes, and he received a brutal whipping by one of the plantation's overseers that nearly killed him. Peter decided to flee to the north, where he joined the Union Army. When he was getting checked by doctors, they took pictures of his back that were published in newspapers. It was the picture that made more blacks join the Union Army and solidify the abolitionist cause, and got him the phrase "the scourged back." I'm pretty sure if you look that up, you can probably find it. I didn't want to do that, but there you go. Smith will, of course, play Peter. He will also produce the film as well. The movie has actually been in the works for a while, apparently. Fuqua read the script about 2 years ago. And according to reports, he has been secretly working on it with Will Smith for some time. Deadline got some comments from Fuqua on why he decided to do the movie. If you have the time, you can go check out those comments. They're very powerful, and they're pretty great quotes by Fuqua himself. The plan is to start shooting early next year after Smith finishes the sports drama King Richard, which is about the father of Venus and Serena Williams, and Fuqua will finish the sci-fi action thriller Infinity with Mark Wahlberg. So yeah, it was pretty cool. Will Smith has kind of avoided slave movies. There was that big thing that he was going to be in Django Unchained, and then he turned it down for whatever reasons he had. Some people were saying because he didn't want to be in a movie where he played a slave. So there was a whole big thing about that. If you want to go check it out. That was one of the arguments. There has been other arguments about that, but this is pretty cool. I don't think Will Smith and Anton Fuqua have ever worked together, so I think that's a pretty unique team. Obviously, Fuqua has worked a lot with Denzel Washington, and they're a pretty great team together. So this is a pretty interesting team up if they can pull this off and get it off the ground and get it to work and it sticks. So that's pretty cool. So I wasn't going to talk about this because I saw it and I wasn't going to talk about it, but it's made such a big deal online that I feel like I should talk about it. So this is going to be the big movie news item of the week, the last movie news item of the week. AMC, one of, if not the biggest theater chain, has revealed their plans to reopen their theaters since the pandemic started. The company is expected to open 450 of their locations starting July 15th. And expects to be fully operational by July 27th, or at least half fully operational by July 27th, which is when Mulan opens. And then, of course, for the 31st, when Tenet opens. Of course, we talked about that earlier. They said they are reducing their seating capacity in order to help people social distance. It is implementing new cleaning procedures, placing hand sanitizing stations throughout its theaters, and encouraging contactless and cash-free concessions. But this is the part that pissed a good chunk of people off. Not everyone, because there are people that don't want to do what protects them. AMC will not mandate that all their guests wear masks, although employees will be required to do so. They will also not perform temperature checks on customers, but monitor their employees and train, quote unquote, train them to check for signs of coronavirus. The situation will be different in states and cities that require people to wear masks when they're out in public, but AMC CEO and President Adam Aron said that AMC doesn't want to become politicized. The issue has become politicized. And here's a quote that is being touted around that everyone's getting up in arms about. And I will agree. I am one of those people. Quote, "We do not want to be drawn into a political conversation. We thought it might be counterproductive if we forced mask wearing on those people who believe strongly that it is not necessary. We think that the vast majority of AMC guests will be wearing masks. When I go to an AMC feature, I will certainly be wearing a mask and leading by example." End quote. He tried to save it. AMC, him and him try to save it, saying they will sell masks for $1 if guests forget to bring one. And while AMC is the highlight of the news right now, I should mention, and it should be mentioned, even because I saw people being like, "Well, I guess I'm just going to go to Regal and Cinemark." Regal and Cinemark will also be opening around mid-July as well. They are also now requiring people wear masks in states and areas where it is not mandated. To keep going with what AMC is doing, they are using some new cleaning supplies. They will be taking extra time to clean the auditoriums and after each showing and spreading out their show times throughout the day, blocking out every other row, pushing guests to use online ticketing and kiosks to limit interactions with staff, and designating various points within their theaters for one-way traffic. They will start with a 30% capacity and over time increase the number by 10. They hope to fill half of their auditoriums by Labor Day and be at full capacity by Thanksgiving. So one, the whole, you don't have to wear a mask to go to a movie theater thing. This has become a big deal regardless, the whole mask wearing thing. Because there are people out there who do not want to wear a mask. And if you're one of those people, fine. That is your prerogative. That is, your decision to make. But here is the thing that's going to happen. And I envision this happening. And it's a sad state of affairs if it happens. Because if it happens in a movie theater when there's, potentially if you bring your kids with you, your kids are probably going to see a fight. Because obviously we've seen the videos of people not wearing masks in public and people wearing masks in public and how they get into an argument and, so on and so have you. So I guarantee there will be videos at a movie theater where people are wearing masks that are arguing with people who are not wearing masks or vice versa. That's the one issue. The other issue is AMC being like, you don't have to wear a mask if you don't have to. First of all, you're a company. Second of all, first of all, you're a company. You should require people to wear masks in their movie theater. I get it. You don't want to wear a mask. That's fine. You don't have to go. You don't have to go to the movie theater. It should be required. A lot of businesses are requiring people to wear masks when they enter. And if not, it is encouraged, strongly encouraged that you wear a mask. I don't understand the people who don't want to wear a mask. Like, the whole point of wearing a mask is that you don't spread it, or you don't, better yet, catch it. I don't understand those people who do not want to wear a mask, especially in a movie theater where you're cramped in there with, however many people are going to be in there now when movie theaters open. But AMC taking the route of saying, first of all, they didn't have to say anything. They could have just been like, we're not mandating you to wear a mask. It's the fact that they said, we do not want to draw into a political conversation. You didn't have to say that. The fact that I think the reason why everyone's up in arms is the fact that they said that we do not want to be drawn to political conversation, because no one was getting upset at Regal and Cinemark when they said, we're not requiring people to wear masks if it's not mandated by the state or the city or the area where our theater happens to be. AMC just decided to, dig their own hole and say that to themselves. That's fine. Whatever. That's your program. They tried, they were trying to save it on Twitter and everything, which is fine. And they're still trying to save it on Twitter and everything, replying to people. People are canceling their A-list subscriptions, because, they don't want to go to a movie theater that does not require people to wear masks. That's fine. That's, to each their own. But I don't, it just became such a whirlwind of just all these people coming together, and all the people who want to wear masks and believe in wearing masks, and all the people who do not believe in wearing masks, all just butting heads at each other on Twitter once this news came out. Look, I have mentioned on the podcast, the thing that I missed the most since the whole pandemic started was going to the movie theater. And I don't know if I said it on the podcast or not, but once movie theaters open, I'm not going right away. I am not going to risk my health or the risk of my family's health to go into a movie theater right away when there's probably a bunch of people there. I do not want to do that. I'm still iffy about going to a movie theater. If I do go to a movie theater, once they reopen, it's either going to be the earliest show possible or the latest show. Probably the earliest. I don't want to go to the latest show possible because by then, even if the employees do what they're supposed to be doing, that is the main factor. Are the employees actually cleaning it the way they're supposed to? That's the big thing. But I don't know, man. I don't feel comfortable doing it. If I do it, it's just because I want to see, how it's gonna be from now on. Because it's not gonna. Because AMC themselves, they just said they expect to be full capacity by Thanksgiving, but by that point, the second wave is supposed to hit. So I don't know how that's gonna work. I don't know, man. It's just it's a tricky thing. I don't want movie theaters to open when there's a pandemic. Do I miss going to movie theaters? Yes, but I don't want to also risk my life and going in too early. I don't want to do that. I'd rather miss out on movies that I'm really excited for, like Tenet, like Mulan. Although I'm not, overly excited for Mulan than I am for Tenet. My excitement levels are different for those two movies. But, I don't want to risk my life and my family's life and my health for, just watching a movie that I could, watch later. I don't want that. I don't want that for anyone else either. I don't want to be selfish. I don't want it for anyone else either. I love going to the movies, but I'm not going to do it if there's a pandemic going on and people don't want to wear masks. No, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to be sitting someone next, or I'm not going to be sitting next. If I'm sitting next to anyone, it's going to be my family, but I don't want to be sitting anywhere near anyone who's not wearing a mask. Like no, I don't want that. We're stuck in a room together where there is barely any circulation and you want to not wear a mask? Like, you really want to risk your own health and safety for that because you want to go watch a movie and you don't want to wear a mask? Like, that's really what you want to do? Like, really? No, I don't want that. And I'll be wearing a mask. I don't know. This is hard. I get, and the other thing for AMC is that, they're on the verge. There's been reports that they're on the verge of bankruptcy since they closed down. So there is that to take into account too. But I don't know. And the fact that everyone they're jumping off the AMC bandwagon. Look at what Regal and Cinemark are doing. They're not requiring you to wear masks either. So I don't know how you, I suspect that AMC became the lightning rod to all this hate because of that. We don't want to, then we don't want this to become a political issue comment. And that's the thing that kind of drove everyone to just attack AMC, even though Regal and Cinemark are not requiring you to wear a mask either. I just wanted to mention it because it became this big thing online, and I'm still seeing a little bit of it this morning as I'm recording it. So yeah, there's that. How do you feel? How do you guys feel? What are you guys gonna do? Because again, I'm not sure that I'm gonna go. If I do go, it's just going to be honestly, it's just going to be like a spur of the moment thing. If I do go, it's going to be a very early showing. It's going to be like as soon as they just clean everything's still fresh and clean. And I'm the first person there sitting in that seat, sitting in that auditorium. Because I'm not going late at night. I'm not going in the middle of the day when there's already been a bunch of people already sitting there like that. I'm not going to do that. So what do you guys? How do you guys feel about it? Are you guys going to go? I know I've listened to some podcasts of people like me, just movie fans, saying that they're not going to go right away, and I agree with them. I do. I'm not going to go as soon as they open. I'm not going to go on July 15th. That's not something I'm doing. I'm not going to line up at a movie theater just because they open right away. Like, no, no, don't do it. Don't do that. So yeah, there you go. That's, I just wanted to bring that up because I felt like if I didn't bring that up and I didn't say anything, I don't know. Just wear a mask. Just wear a mask. Please, just wear a mask. Before we end the podcast, I do want to mention, obviously I'm kind of redoing this a little bit because this just came out this morning. Ian Holm, who is a classically trained Shakespearean actor, probably best known film-wise for the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where he played Bilbo, Ash, where he played Alien. One of the roles that I kind of first was familiar with him, The Fifth Element. He has sadly passed away. He passed away at the age of 88. He died apparently peacefully in his sleep, losing his battle to Parkinson's. That kind of sucks. He sadly passed away at the age of 88, but he was surrounded by friends and family, or by family and his carer. Yeah, that sucks. He's been a part of my movie life for a long time, and I just saw Aliens again for the first time in a long time just this past weekend, and I forgot just how different he is in every single role he's done. Seeing him in The Fifth Element being like this, goofy character, and then, remembering him as Bilbo in the Lord of the Rings movies and even the Hobbit movies where he briefly appears, and then seeing him in Alien is just, he's completely different. And obviously he's done a lot of more projects. I know Chariots on Fire is another one that people bring up a lot when they mention him. But yeah, unfortunately Ian Holm has passed away. So I just wanted to mention that because he was one of my favorite actors as a kid growing up. And yeah, I just wanted to just give him a mention here. So that's it for the podcast, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to it. I very much appreciate it. Let me know what your favorite movie news item was. What was your reactions to the news this week? Everything, or just one thing. Just let me know. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you can tell me in the comments. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, I do have the Twitter page open up for you guys, so you can go over there and let me know. Everything that you need is down below in the description/show notes area. There was also a Entertainment Weekly cover story for Tenet. I can't believe I almost forgot to mention that. So Entertainment Weekly did this cover story with Tenet, and Christopher Nolan gave us just a little bit more of what the movie's about, a little bit more of what time inversion is, because, you heard that mentioned in the trailers, so he mentioned that a little bit. There's interviews with the cast a little bit. He does mention that Aaron Taylor Johnson, who's in the movie, who has not been in the trailers, is indeed in the movie, and he does play a big part, but he's almost unrecognizable, so we'll have to wait and see what all that's about. But yeah, if you want to go read that story, want to know a little bit more about what's going on with Tenet, go ahead and read it. I'll link it down below in the description/show notes area. So yeah. All right. That's it, everybody. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. Be good people out there. Be safe. Wear a mask. Wash your hands. If you're not going to wear a mask, at least wash your hands. Be sanitary, please. And the fact that I have to say wash your hands is still, the fact that we even still have to say wash your hands is still very sad in our world. But yeah, be safe, everybody. Be safe, everybody. Blah. Be safe out there, everybody. Be good people, and as always, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!